Hello. Good afternoon. Welcome to Livestream. Yeah. Nice to see you nice. Yeah, sorry about that if you were trying to log on to my stream and then it disappeared and then I was late. It wasn't me. I think it was YouTube had a bit of a bug with Safari, so I had to quit everything and start again, and then eventually it began to work. Yeah, so it wasn't me this time. Woohoo! That's a rarity. Nice. So I hope you're all having a beautiful Sunday morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is in your time zone. Yeah. So we shall do the regular format. So if you listen to my talks regularly, you'll know that I always like to do sitting in silence in the beginning. I never used to like to name it, but now I call it meditation. This is how practices evolve, because it's just simpler to call it that. And yeah, that is kind of, I suppose, what we're doing. Yeah, just as a disclaimer, like non-duality is about questioning the I. So when you give a practice like meditation, the I thinks, there is a me here that can do something. And oh man, non-duality is so much deeper than that. So the idea that I give a practice and that you do it is simply an idea that you're conditioned into. There is a happening, and it's so vastly complex that we can't comprehend it. Yeah. So there is a meditation that is going to happen, and there isn't a success and a failure. That again is something that we make up as humans and is mind-made. There is something that happens. Meditation isn't for everybody. If you've had strong trauma in the past and you haven't received help for that, even if you have received help from it, you can find that you go back into traumatic memories. That's, I suppose, okay if it doesn't go too deep and if you can hold it, but if it goes too deep and you get stuck into a loop of it, it's not healthy for you. So I recommend doing something else, maybe yoga, just anything to change your mind until it's out of that trauma loop. I'm really not recommending staying in a trauma loop. And also for some people that maybe have OCD thinking or very high intelligence, also meditation's not always great for them as well. You know, again, I would recommend something physical and practical. Yoga, Tai Chi, there's so many different practices. And these are about focusing your mind and controlling it, but it gives you something else to focus on as well, and less chance of the mind spiraling into compulsive thinking or traumas or anything like this. Yeah. Yeah, so this is my disclaimers. And for everybody else, I feel like meditation is really healthy. There's been lots of studies on it as well, saying that meditation is really healthy for the person. But we've got to remember that the studies are often created by pharmaceutical companies and by, by companies in which can make money from it. So they're normally biased, but they do suggest that it's helpful. For me in my life, I feel like it saved my life, meditation. I started meditating with the London Buddhist Centre, the FWBO, if any of you have heard of it. They have a different name now, but because of my dyslexia, I can't pronounce it, Tratna something. But you can still look them up under FWO. And I feel like it really saved my life. Yeah. The community, the organisation, and the actual meditating. Prior to that, I did not know how to be by myself and to not do something. I was a human doer, not a human being. a human runner, a human trying to escape her. And meditation gave me that ability to really sit in anything that's appearing and not run away from it. And that was a profound lesson for this character on this body. Yeah. Did it lead me to enlightenment? That's the fool's question. That's so simplistic. Who will get to enlightenment, and what is this thing called enlightenment? And who is so interested about that? The wise person is interested in what's happening now. That's fantasy. That's fantasy. Or the wise person knows that the biggest reality is now. Now. Now that's got no benefit to you. Yeah. Okay, so we shall begin. I have a big gong in which I dong. So please prepare yourself. It might knock you off your chair. It's so humongous. Yes. And if you've never meditated before, the way it goes is that when I dong the gong, you then shut your eyes and begin to meditate. If you don't know meditation practice, then I shall recommend some now. Number one is the mindfulness of breathing, which I learned from the FWBO, and that is counting your breath. Every time you breathe in, you count your breath all the way up to number 10, and then you start again. And it's not about, there's no failure if you get to 956, it's just about that practice. You just keep doing it, and even not about getting frustrated or feeling like you should get to number 10 all the time. It's just doing it, just presenting yourself. The next practice is putting your attention back into the I am or consciousness, whichever you prefer. I was always an I am girl because I'm from the Nisargadatta Maharaj line. The I am girl. I am Amsterdam. But yeah, you can do it to consciousness or whatever that means to you. Or you can do it to the present moment, whatever. Those three, to me, all have similarity, or very similar. And then the last one is not doing anything. So you just sit there and you allow your mind to wander over anything it wants to wander over. But remember, if you're going into traumatic experiences, do something else. Do some yoga moves, put some music on, just break that. Don't sit there in trauma. If you do want to sit there in trauma, which can be helpful to sit and explore trauma, I always recommend doing it with somebody that's trained in trauma, because it's very complex, and what you don't want to do is be circling and looping in it and not being able to get out of it. Yeah. Okay, let's go. Here is my big dong that I gong. I just realised I turned the sound off there. So I've got to turn the sound back on. So you might have missed a bit of my dong. Yeah, I'm hoping you didn't hear that. We just had the chorus of the dogs. But I think that, yeah, my volume was off and you couldn't hear. The chorus of the dogs. Who knows what they bark at sometimes? They're just like, one gets going and then the other one goes. Yeah. So, today is an interesting topic. It's personality disorders and non-duality. Yeah. So as a disclaimer, I'm always giving disclaimers. I am not an expert in personality disorders. I don't claim to be. I have just studied it because I find it interesting, and any information that I give could be incorrect. Like, I'm not sure about my mind and my memory of things. Yeah. So first of all, before we start with comparing personalities or talking about personalities with disorders with non-duality, first of all, going to speak about what non-duality is. Maybe some people don't know what personality disorders are, so I'll go into that as well. And I'll go into why I decided to pick this topic today. Yeah. So, let's get going. Okay, let me just make sure my audio is in. As I always say, please let me know if my audio is no good. Yeah, if there's problems with my audio. I try my best, but I do all of this by myself, so I can't always know if there is an issue with my audio. And I'll do this introduction for about 20-25 minutes, and then I will take questions and answers. And also, just as an advertisement, I forgot to say this, I am doing a retreat this year. It's the first time in 2 years because of the C word, and it's in the south of France at the end of May, so you can find that on my website. Also, I'm not currently taking bookings for sessions. People keep writing to me asking me for sessions or asking to be put on the waiting list, and I'm also just not adding people to the waiting list. I mean, if they really want to, they can, but the waiting list is so big, it's kind of pointless. They're not gonna get the session. Yeah. And I will update you when that changes, but currently I've cut down the amount of sessions I'm doing, and I'm only working with regular people that I've spoken to over the years. Yeah. Okay. So what is non-duality? The best subject in the whole entire world, I think. So to me, non-duality is an energetic movement from being separate to non-separation. It's not the fixing of the personality, it's not a behavior, it's not a human way of being, it's going back to something that's non-conceptual and experiential beyond words and beyond behaviors, beyond thoughts. It's a movement back to what I would call your essence. And it is a movement. So when you're identified with the person, there is this like energetic thing that happens that makes you feel small. And as that begins to break away, and when you have awakenings, and then there is this like shift where your essence feels like fundamentally who you are, and the character is something appearing in you. So I would call it like an energetic expansion. So from being contracted to an energetic expansion, and it's like love. Not conditional love, but unconditioned love, or you could call it deep rest. But it's not a personality thing, and that's the most confusing thing to someone, because when you're listening with thoughts and when you're listening with mind, and that's how we often listen, then you take what I say or anyone says, and then you interpret it through the mind. And if you interpret it through the mind is in dualistic thinking, so subject-object, so it always relates to you, obviously, because that's the nature of the way we think. So say if I taught you how to clean a carpet, like the way in which I communicate it to you is there is an I there, a you there, which uses a machine to clean a carpet. So I'm identifying all these objects, a you that is standing there with a vacuum, this big vacuum that like sucks in water and it does this whole cleaning carpet thing, it does this wheel. Then there's a vacuum, then there's a carpet, and then there's all the space around, and then there is me that's instructing you. So there is all these separate objects in our language. When we identify with being an object, which is ourself, the body, mind, the thoughts, the feelings, the ideas, we then separate from all other things, and it becomes an energetical expression in the body. That sounds really weird, but there is this feeling of you being inside the body, like your body is limited. It's like your thoughts create this idea that you've begun to believe without a doubt, that you are someone inside the body. And then when that happens, there is a losing of your sense of peace, like not yours personally, but this sense of peace, of being, of life, of everything. And when that sense of beingness is lost, then something forms where the personality structure begins to seek for relief in pleasure and pain. And that's one of the biggest mistakes of humanity. And this isn't something that I am saying just as me. Oh God, that could be taken on so many different levels. Like it's being just spoken, really. On the ultimate level, it's just speaking, coming out. But as Lisa, it's not just me. Like there's many, many spiritual traditions that also talk about this dilemma of craving, they call it in Buddhism, or seeking, more so in non-duality. So trying to hold on to pleasure and avoid pain. So as soon as you become this body, then you focus on the main thing of the body, which is the pleasure-pain movement. And that's the way our bodies are programmed to move around what's pleasurable and painful. And then it gets so much more complicated with our psychology, with our understanding, with our social interactions. But it's kind of like the primary principle, I think, of most mammals, maybe all mammals, this movement between pleasure and pain. But this cutting off from the wholeness creates seeking, which is this misidentification that peace will come in pleasure. So my dog Khaleesi, she certainly moves towards pleasure and away from pain. That's her primary setup. And it sometimes can be complex even for a dog, the way she associates things as pain and pleasure. So she primarily does that, but she doesn't have a disconnect from peace. So in the background, there's always peace. So like today, she got very agitated by a dog. Normally I'm always in control of it, but the dog came up to us and we were in a very narrow path and we ended up falling over, rolling around in the mud. And there's the couple whose other dog it was felt really bad that they'd let their dog do that. But to her, that is pain in the moment. That's also trauma arising. That's also personality disturbance. Like it comes because in the beginning, I didn't really understand what it was to have a wild street dog. And so I didn't train her in the right way. I trained her more in the way of a traditional domesticated dog. I didn't really understand her genetic conditioning. And then there's also trauma from being a street dog. So there becomes this personality disturbance where she struggles with some dogs if they bother her. You know, like she can walk past them, but if they bother her, she struggles. So you could call this a personality disturbance, but she has no attachment to that. So afterwards, it's like the body shakes and she kind of releases that trauma. It's not necessarily about releasing the trauma, but she doesn't identify, you could say, with that trauma. It's not belonging to her. So there is the pain of it, there is the overreaction that comes from her, but she doesn't feel that she's lost wholeness from it, because on the underlying level, she is always everything. She's not a singular dog in relation to all these objects. She doesn't know that she's got a nose and ears. Her body doesn't walk into things, so the body has the intelligence of being separate, but internally she feels one with everything. I know that's a big statement for me to say, but I just know that she can't separate. She hasn't got complex thinking which does that. So there is an underlying deep sense of peace there. So therefore, when she has these pains, which I'm sure are very painful, and these traumas which can carry on, like my mum's dog, you know, can have elongated periods of trauma after fireworks or something. He's a rescue dog as well. But there isn't a personality that's owning that, that's making it about them. And there isn't this sense that that trauma is going to take away wholeness, or that if they get to pleasure, they will get to wholeness, because they feel that in the background, or they feel that in the foreground, they feel that everywhere. So there is a huge difference there, even though they can have personality disturbances. And this is, so what's happened in the human, it's very complex, because we have this complex thinking which is way beyond comprehension, actually. And we have these traumas, and we have this ability for our mind to get stuck on traumas, but that doesn't necessarily mean seeking. Seeking is this sense of your internal being, that which never leaves, feeling separated. So since you were born at birth, you always had this consciousness and this I am. Teachers call that all different words. Call it love. There was always this immediate sense of being that wasn't based on your personality structure, your behaviors, your body. It was this sense of being that wasn't separate from everything. So the baby looks out at the world and it has no sense, oh, I'm these hands or I'm this body. It just is this pure beingness that's everywhere. It doesn't know that it's a baby in the body, separate from the wall, the ceiling, the mother. It just is. And this is a very deeply contented beingness. It's total at-homeness. Even though the body's experiencing pleasure and pain, underneath that it's totally connected to that peace. And then that begins to change as its brain begins to develop its functioning. But we forget that beingness. That beingness becomes one and the same thing as the personality and the body. So you can't separate that beingness out. It feels like that beingness is limited and inside this body. So there is this beingness, this empty looking, you could call it, or consciousness, and there is this sense of I am, which is timeless and without feeling, without emotion, without anything. And it is the core sense of being, and you could call it love. And it's timeless. And it is everywhere in all things. Some people call it God, mystery, no thing and everythingness. Doesn't really matter what you call it. And that's here right now. And that is everything's birthright. But that kind of seemingly becomes condensed into the personality. So the personality thinks, I am conscious, I am this body. And it can't separate out the consciousness and the I am from things, from personality, from feelings, from emotions, from thoughts, from behaviors, from others. It feels like you are that. And then that loses that connectedness to wholeness. Yeah, it's beautiful. Non-duality is so beautiful. Yeah, so to carry on with that. So when we get into this subject, the personality is normally unbalanced for various different reasons. It can be because of insecure relationships while being brought up. So insecure and unbalanced relationships. So your caregivers didn't demonstrate to you safety on an emotional level, physical level, or like food and stuff. Is that physical? It comes under physical. So this can disturb the personality. So they didn't meet your needs of attachment. Then the other issues that can arise is trauma. So having grounded parents and secure parents or caregivers, but then immense trauma like war, death, all types of problems, car accidents. This can disturb the personality. And then the other is the seeking, which believes that the sense of being, your essence, is found in pleasure and avoiding pain. So pleasure can be relationships, objects, money, house, story about yourself, the way others see you, food, alcohol, drink, it can be all these things and more. And avoiding pain at all cost. And this exaggerates and exacerbates the already unbalanced personality. And I would go to suggest that most personalities aren't that balanced in our society. We do get balanced personalities, but I would suggest that most aren't so balanced, and it's getting worse. The caregiving standards, I know it sounds terrible, like doom and gloom, but I think the caregiving standards of children is becoming worse. So the way in which we raise children, so that seems unbelievable to us, because if you think back to like 50, 60, 70 years ago, there was so many dogmatic and strict and ridiculous ideas. But I think it's becoming worse, because I think that a lot of the time, particularly in Western society, parents don't have enough time to create really secure attachments with the children. So the most important thing, I don't know actually most important, but more than likely one of the most important things is secure attachment in childhood, not your beliefs. So even though there could be like these really religious, dogmatic beliefs like 50, 60, 70 years ago that we all think are like boop, boop now, or 100 years ago, they maybe had more secure attachment with their primary caregivers. Maybe even before the education system came in, but that could be wrong, and it's dependent totally. And that's just my opinion, I don't really know. I also think social media and computers play a part in it as well, and that we're becoming more nuclear in our families, so we're becoming more confined, and we're heading more towards a more individualistic society rather than a community society. Yeah. So the problem that we get into when we express non-duality, and I'm only just really beginning to understand the depth of this, is that a lot of people come into non-duality with already disbalanced personalities. In the East, they would spend many, many years balancing the personality before they came into non-duality, and I understand why that is now. Not that the East is all correct, because I don't think they have great psychological understanding of things, and they have this whole guru thing, so they've got issues in themselves. But Yeah. I do think that non-duality can, to an extent, heal issues in personalities, but I think also it can exacerbate it, especially if you like really listen to really extreme, like neo non-duality, which I love, and I love to speak like neo non-duality, neo Advaita. I can't remember what it's called. I love to speak that. I love listening to it. But if you think about some of the things that are said, if you've got an extreme personality disorder, so personality disorder is something that is developed particularly in psychology, and they have different personalities and different criteria that people have to meet in the DSM. And I think that most people are on spectrums of personality disorders, but they wouldn't get diagnosed with it, but there's like a spectrum, there's like an element towards certain disorders. So you have different personality disorders, and then you have something like everything is empty. If you looked at something like BPD, borderline personality disorder, or narcissistic personality disorder, one core criteria is that they feel emptiness, but not in a positive way. It's in a very negative way. And they feel this chronic emptiness because in childhood, again, this is just my opinion, and I might be wrong about this, but in childhood they haven't had their personality reflected back to them enough, their wants, their needs, maybe not had it at all, and they struggled to develop a healthy ego or a healthy personality which has wants, which has needs, which can define itself from other people. And then if you go into non-duality, it's about breaking down the ego. And if you've already got this emptiness and no ego, and then you're breaking down the ego, and then you're hearing teachers say that emptiness part is positive, and they can totally relate to that. They totally don't know who they are or what they want or what they feel, but it's not the same thing. But to them, another thing that maybe BPT or MPD have is that they feel low self-esteem. So they listen to this subject and then they're like, oh yeah, I experience this emptiness, like I'm really close to enlightenment, and they think it's the same thing. I mean, in a way there is a quality, because the personality isn't true, so they can see that. But if you haven't got an established ego, you just can't really survive very well in this world. You're just going to create hell for yourself, not in a positive way. And you'll most probably use non-duality in a negative way as well, because it's kind of the tendency of that personality disorder, unless it's treated or known or understood and conceptualized. So this is just one example of the difficulties with non-duality and personality disorder. And I'm only really beginning to conceptualize it. When I got into non-duality, I didn't know about I did know a little bit about personality disorders back then, but I didn't know so much, and I just totally fell in love with this subject. I just fell in love with, every time someone mentioned the now, my heart would sing, and I didn't really understand conceptually everything, but it was like I felt love. I felt like I knew it on the tip of my tongue. And what I experienced when I began to teach was a lot of hatred from people in non-duality, a lot of love as well, but some hatred that I was far out. How can they be into non-duality and have so much hatred for me? Fair enough, they think I'm a bad teacher, or they think that I am misleading people. That's fair enough. But the rage and the hatred, so if somebody sent a balanced comment, they're not raging and hating on me, and they're saying, giving lists of reasons of why I'm a bad teacher, I feel that's fair enough, that's their opinion. And I can always see how anybody that teaches has negativity to it, because you can't teach everybody at once. And there's always going to be problems in every system. And I can recognize problems in my personality when teaching happens, but I don't think that that means that I'm a bad teacher. I think I've got great qualities as well, but I can recognize that and I can reflect on it, and I'm so happy to expand and try to improve in those areas. But I'm always going to be imperfectly perfect, like everybody. And we're always like a work in process that's evolving. But this rage and this hatred and this projection, this like putting up, bringing down, putting up, bringing down, like extreme, like fascinated me. It also scared me as well. Prior to becoming a teacher, I felt like non-duality was like love and like ultimate compassion. Yeah, I just thought it was so beautiful, and I thought it was also like ultimate world peace in a way, like the biggest activism you could do. Then when I started teaching it, I saw this other side to non-duality, that this extreme level of hate that can be there. Sometimes I also recognize that people can be doing it as a practice. Like I also love Osho, and I know that like Osho has this thing of like really expressing and letting out your anger. So I'm also open to the idea that sometimes it's like a conscious practice to be abusive towards me. You know, like in Osho, it's like you'd go into these classes and you'd just like shout and scream every abuse you wanted to everybody in the room or to anybody. But I think occasionally it was that, but I think most of the time the people that really hated on me really believed it. And I see it with other teachers as well. Like I see the hateful comments. It's not just me. You know, that's why a lot of teachers have ban on comments. And I think that the people are also that are doing it are into non-duality. It's not like they stumbled on this channel and then started hating on it. That I can understand more. I think they're deeply into non-duality from their comments. Yeah. And so for years, you know, I've really like pondered this. And I think now I really begin to understand it, because I think that personality disorders are on the increase because we're having less secure human attachment. We're going through this massive evolutionary change. You know, both parents now are normally working in the West. I'm not saying that mothers should stay at home or anything. Like, I'm not saying that if you want to work, great, that's good. But statistically, it has been shown, and again, statistics can be wrong because who is the person that wants these statistics and what is their motivation? But from lots of studies, it has been shown that the very secure early attachments, which most probably mean a parent not going off and going to work and leaving the child in childcare, is healthier for the child. Or if you do leave them, it's like leaving them with people that they already have very strong relationships with. Although that could be wrong. Yeah. So it's on the increase. And then I think that things that non-duality say, you know, the emptiness, the ego, like there is no ego, there is no person, which is so totally true, resonate when there's personality disorders or very extreme personalities, or even like just on a tendency of that personality disorder. Then I also think the other element of it, which also goes in with personality disorders, is this idea of becoming supremely enlightened, like God, like Jesus, like the Buddha, like this supremely perfect person. And yeah, that really goes, you know, with narcissistic personality disorder. Like, who wants to go to a therapist, you know, when you can do something which makes you enlightened and tells you that there's nothing wrong with you? And people with personality disorders find it very difficult going to therapists because of the level of shame that they feel. It's yeah, I'm working one-on-one with people, whereas non-duality is this group thing where it kind of like suggests that it heals all problems, which in one way it does. It's like absolute freedom. But I feel if you're like strongly identified and suffering from a personality disorder, it's highly unlikely that this is going to be heard. I feel like it's most probably going to be used as a way to cope with the personality disorder and to feel better about yourself, to keep other people at bay, and to deal with that. Could even support and exaggerate personality disorders. So I see the problem. I can see why therapists would be absolutely repulsed by the idea of non-duality, you know, knowing it very thickly, not knowing it intimately. I can see why they would think it was dangerous, but they don't know it intimately. Like, if you know it intimately, like really, really comprehend non-duality, it's the most beautiful thing there is. It really is. And I feel like non-duality saved my life. I don't feel like I had a personality disorder. I feel like I'm on the spectrum like other people, but I do feel like I had severe trauma and was acting out severe trauma. Like, or maybe not severe, like I wasn't in a war zone or anything. Maybe that's worse. Like, but I had high trauma. So by the time I left home, I was exhibiting effects of high trauma. And I feel like meditation, non-duality saved my life. And I feel like the therapy, I did lots of therapy, helped balance me. And also the meditation, the groups and all the group work I did and Osho helped balance my personality as well. But I feel like if I just did therapy without non-duality, like I would think that I would have I feel like I would have mastered how to deal with the trauma and my personality issues. So I would have mastered that and become more balanced in that level, but there would have still been this loss that every human experiences, which is the most profound suffering, the loss from self. I feel like in combination, you know, these two are so powerful. You know, you just go into therapy and it's too mindy, it's too much on the personality, but you just go into non-duality and you've got to settle the personality down first. You know, otherwise it's just going to be about, non-duality is going to become a coping mechanism. So this combination is like it rocks. And I feel like it's an evolution from what came out of the East. I feel like in the East, you know, they haven't really got the psychology, and there's lots of this guru thing going on, which can have benefits to it, but I feel like in the East they're not very psychologically aware. And if you take India for an example, and if you look at society that reflects back the psychology of people, you know, India can be a very cruel society. I'm sorry, India. I'm not saying that we as Westerners aren't cruel as well, but I do feel like we're improving. Yeah, like the way in India poverty is treated, and like the big gap between richness and poverty. I'm not saying that the West hasn't played a part. I know that England did terrible things to India and stolen, and in a way, maybe the fact that Europe became so rich, it gave it opportunity for society to become a bit more fair. They are getting more fair and better, I think. There's also problems in our society. but we do have a healthcare system we do attempt to have a healthcare system for everyone and social benefits, and that is a huge thing. Like, I know it's still so lower than what we could be, but it's a huge thing if you look at society. I don't really know the ins and outs of India, but I don't know what they do for somebody that doesn't have healthcare in India, like private healthcare. I think there are some government hospitals, but I think it's not so good. Yeah. I mean, except America. America's the big exception. Why, Americans? I don't understand. Do you not have more social help for people? That to me just seems insane. You're so rich. Yeah, so that is my talk on personality disorders and non-duality. Yeah. And you're welcome to ask questions. I've begun to change in the last year, I think. I'm less willing to go into personal stuff on these sessions because I don't know how beneficial that is for people. I begin more and more, I begin to understand psychology, the more I think it's better really if you work with someone one-to-one on your psychology. I'm happy to give hints, but I feel like there is so many possibilities of what could be going on for you, you know. It's only a guess and a recommendation and an exploration, but I just realized there could be so many different variants in there. And it's very hard to just have someone call in and just give a few things. I can point to things and talk about the chakras and talk about things generally, but it's firstly not my expertise. I have trained myself so much in it, but I'm not like an expert in human behavior and human feelings and energies in the body. But I feel, an expert on non-duality. And that's where my expertise are. It's like without a doubt, I know what non-duality is beyond the person. Like it's like I feel so I kind of gone back to more pointing about that, but then it's like I have to be careful because I also don't want to go too extreme into non-duality. It's like a delicate balancing. Yeah. So you're welcome to write questions on Skype or I can call you, but don't call me. Always put just call me and nothing else after it so I can see it in Skype, but don't call me because I'm trying to not let it make any sounds for people because people have requested and said that's uncomfortable, that Skype sound. So yeah, please put, and then also I'm not in the same time as you, I'm a few seconds ahead. So I might still be speaking to someone else when you call in. Am I ahead? Yes, I'm ahead. I'm not behind. And we can get very existential about that. Yeah. Okay, so we got one call in from Olivia and we've got lots of other questions. So if you want to call in, put call me. And it's best if you, when you call in, so you've got your question ready so you know, because I can imagine it's really nerve-wracking. I suddenly can't call in and you're live to all these hundreds of people and then in a few days it's going to be thousands of people. So it's best that you kind of like have a sense of what you want to ask, and then it's best to have a headset, quiet space with a microphone. You know, give the best opportunity for this to flow, right? Okay, Olivia, I'm going to call you. Get ready, here I come. Hello.
Hi.
Hey. Nice to see you. I can see you, by the way. You don't have to have your video on. It's maybe better for me if you don't because of my internet.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been such a long time.
Yeah, it has been a long time. Nice to hear from you.
I had my second awakening a week ago.
Yeah.
And I just remember when I was with you on the retreat that you said from the first awakening it takes 7 years, the Buddhists say.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's what you said. I never forgot it. And now 6.5 years later, I had the second
Ah,
awakening.
nice.
But I wrote you a long text a few days ago
Oh, I don't think I
where I
saw it.
wrote like, I'm so sad. I thought it stayed. Oh, I hoped it would stay this time.
Yeah.
But I think something stayed definitely.
So what happened?
Well, I was angry at my mom.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting in my chair recording a voicemail. And suddenly there was this voice again that said, also in the first awakening, I also heard a voice asking me a question, and then afterwards everything was clear. And it happened again, and this voice asked, like, how many times do you still want to go into the story or get angry about it? But the key word was story, and I just realized that the whole thing with my mother is just a story I keep telling myself, and the me is a story, and everything is a story.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Oh, nice.
yeah, so
And what
now,
happened? Like there was a shift in energy or a shift in
yes,
thinking?
yes, I could every time this happened, it was like another dimension open up, and I could take a step back from the me,
Mm-hmm.
and I could just the identification was somewhere else.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't have a question. I just wanted to tell you. I thought nothing stayed, but I'm in a way more meditative state every day.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, and
Um,
I wouldn't let the mind like get away with those types of thinking, like nothing stayed or like because that is also a story, what stays or what doesn't stay. It's kind of I just wouldn't like if you can see that happening, even though it's ultimately not really you doing it, but the can be you notice that that happens and then a cutting off of it and putting your attention back in the moment, like not going into whether it stays or what it's like or how you've improved, because it's another story in which you can get enticed into. And ironically, like what our mind can do is it can tell the mother story even in the awakening story. So whatever dynamic you're having with your mother, it can
yeah,
then get transferred onto the awakening story. It's just that you are now, victim to awakening or victim to this new story. So I just wouldn't give it attention. It wants to go on. Did it stay or didn't it? Or you hoped or not hoped. So just notice that thinking, and if you can, just notice it, recognize it, and then move your attention back to presence, well
yeah,
knowing that that isn't an individual entity doing it, that is happening.
yeah. It's weird because when you ask me all those non-dual questions, like the right answer comes right away, more clear than before. But at the same time, I kind of, or it seems like I lost this dimension where I could take a step back. Like it hasn't penetrated like fully yet. That's how it feels like.
Mm.
It's kind of there. It's yeah,
Mm.
it's more than I can feel it more than ever. But at the same time, seems like it's not gone fully. I like the me.
Yeah.
I can't really explain it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
nice. Oh, well, lovely to hear that there was another shift, and that's really funny, like 6.5 years later.
Yeah, I thought maybe it's going to get in my way because I think a few months ago I started to think, I remembered what you said, and it was like, whoa, I'm almost at 7 years, maybe something is going to happen, maybe not. And then I kept forgetting about it, but sometimes this thought appeared and then suddenly something happened again. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
Okay, I just want to make space for others who maybe have a
Yeah.
real question. So thank you
Yeah,
so
thanks,
much.
Olivia. Yeah, lovely to hear from you.
Bye.
Bye. So hi Mark. Yes, I'm taking calls. So Eric says, hi Lisa, can I ask a quick question? Type or call in the phone? Yeah, we can call, Eric. So I'll just give you a second to see that and then I will call you. So if you want to speak to me live, please write, just call me in Skype, don't actually call in. And I'm sorry to the people that asked me to not have the Skype music on. I thought that I had managed to turn it off in settings, but no. Oh. Hey, Eric.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. How can I help you or not help you today?
Oh, I don't know if I had a question. It's kind of a question. So I had been involved in the non-duality inquiry for a couple of years, and in the last 4 months or maybe a little less, the anxiety that I had about like wanting my me to fall away or understand all of this kind of stopped happening, and
Oh, good.
I had this different feeling like, so apparently there's already no me, so it doesn't matter. And so I could never have it so-called dissolve, well, because it's already not there. But even if, let's say, my sense of me never fell away, I can still live a perfectly happy and fulfilling life.
Yeah.
And so the question is like, it really is irrelevant. It was just put into my head when I discovered this stuff and made me feel like there was something I needed to do. But the whole time it's
I
just like,
wouldn't say that it made you feel like that. I would say that that's how your mind interpreted it. Like,
okay.
So the way that our minds work is that everything that we hear or see gets filtered through our minds. So when you came into this subject, there had been immense pressure on you to, not just you, but everyone in this society, to perform and to be a good child and to get on in the education system and to become something. So then when you came into this subject, it naturally went into this pressure on you to achieve this idea of no me. And it is a ridiculous idea, and it just becomes another loop. But at the same time, it has to be spoken about, because otherwise we can't speak about this subject if we don't set up perimeters of what we're talking about. So it has to, we can't speak about it in a term of constantly saying no me or like negating everything. Like for any teacher you listen to, there's always going to be something that is like a carrot, like for the donkey, like a carrot being dangled in front. Even if you went to something like really something that's broken down, like Neo-Advaita, there's always going to be a carrot. And then if you went to the opposite end of something that talks very much about a path, like Tantra Buddhism or something, and has lots of practices, there is always going to be some carrot. And if your mind hasn't seen through that illusion, then it will grab onto that illusion and it will use it as a same whip to beat itself. It's not saying that it's your fault, because there is no you there for it to be your fault. You are an effect of everything else that has appeared, which is nothing and everything. So your dynamics are not you and don't belong to you. They're a dynamic and a habit that's happened, and at some point that habit broke, and it was seen beyond that this idea that the me has to disappear is an idea. It's a story. It's a fiction.
Right.
And that is what keeps the me going, this idea that it always has to arrive somewhere. There is a you moving in time that has to arrive at pleasure. And the new pleasure is no me.
Mm-hmm.
The new pleasure is seeing beyond this. The new pleasure is set up in the mind, and it's like this gets chipped and chipped. So it gets chipped away. So what's happened is that idea has begun to collapse in you.
Mm-hmm.
which is beautiful.
Yeah. And it's not replaced by anything. It's just like it's like, oh, okay, I was thinking there was a problem, but there isn't, and I didn't achieve anything. It's just like, hey, live your life, have relationships, go to work, do this, do that, and don't fuss too much about it. Like, I don't know, everything is just a concept, but I have this image of like humans being, well, we're just apes, and prior to evolving into humans with our consciousness, like we were hanging out and just living life, and we didn't have this bubble of ideas about what it needs to be, and it was still just turning and turning the way it always has. And there's just this feeling of like the imaginariness of that bubble of thought and how it feels so real, but it's just hanging like an ether that can't really touch you.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's lovely to talk to you, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Eric, for calling in and saying that.
Of course. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Nick. Oh, a lovely picture. Thanks for sending that. Hi, Lucas. Oops, someone else has just said, call me, I think. Stephen. Yes. Okay. Just let me turn off the volume now. Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Stephen.
How are you?
Yes, I am good, thank you. How are you today?
Doing well. So, I was introduced to you from someone I met who's been seeking for 50 years or so. And he mentioned you, and I decided to check you out. The first video I watched, and the only video I've watched, was from January 30th of this year. And at the 52-minute mark, you said, it's like a speck of dust dancing in a massive beam of light. And when you said that, it struck me so deeply that I realized, like, one, that I needed to connect and hear more of what you have to say, but also it brought back memories from my childhood of just sitting and watching dust in the sunlight.
Yeah.
I had many memories of that,
Yeah.
and the stillness that it brought as a child.
Yeah.
And also during my awakening experience, there was this vision that I had of these floating orbs, and it brought me back to that same idea of, well, the dust doesn't necessarily have a consciousness to it. It doesn't travel in some sort of logical path. These orbs did. There was definitely some sort of I don't know. There was a consciousness to it. So my question for you is, do you know why you said that? Do you know where that came from? Do you know how those words came out of you? Because they really resonated so deeply with me.
So when I speak, there's two different things happening, which ultimately could become a circle in the end. So it's one thing, but there's two things happening. We speak, I mean, this is fairly obvious, but we speak with everything we've been conditioned by. So in this life, and maybe in prior lives as well, if we believe in that. So I tend to have quite a creative mind, and in childhood I also experienced this immense stillness watching the dust. in sunlight, like dancing in sunlight. So on a human level, there is this immense, like, spiritual connection with that. It's beautiful. Then there is this other way in which speaking happens through me, and they're both connected, but it just sounds like they're not. So the way that I just described, you could call a time-based speaking. It relies on memory, of remembering the past, and it's connected to a condition which is going through time, and it's based on the idea of cause and effect. The other way of speaking is this direct speaking, which is also simultaneously happening, where everything that comes out is coming from this place that you could call beyond, or the absolute, which is perfectly still. So it's like that light with the dance, with the dust moving in it. So you could call the personality as this dust gently floating around in it. And then there's this other place of stillness. Some people call it God, some people call it nothing and everything, love, I am, consciousness, in which everything in this moment is arising from and is. It's so close to everything, you can't even say it's arriving from it, because it is it. It's like, it's like a, you could say like paint on a canvas. Like all the pictures that are made on that canvas are the paint. It's not, you could say that they are rising from the paint, but in a way they're not, because they're not separate from the paint. They're not coming out of the paint. They are paint ordered in different directions and mixed slightly different with different colors in them to create the idea of images. But you could say they are the paint. So these words arising come directly from this wholeness, this oneness that's the source of all things. So this sound now, even though we can say it comes through the personality of Lisa, and we can look at it through time, it also, and you could say absolutely, comes from no place, from this mysterious place. And everything is working like that. And if you're listening to this from beyond the mind, from beyond conceptual thinking, you can get a sense of this. It's like love. And it's, everything is like that. So now I'm looking at a tissue box, and then I'm looking at my internet adapter and microphone box, I don't know what that's called, and a plug socket to my computer. And all of that is coming from this stillness. So these words come from this stillness, your words come from this stillness, the computer does, the instruments which I described do, the air, the space. So then you begin to go into this sense of oneness, that everything is connected and everything is the same, just appearing with difference, like the painting on the canvas. So it's all one paint, but it's mixed and lined up differently, so it looks like different objects in the painting, but it's all coming from that one paint, that one source.
Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. The talking from somewhere else has happened quite a few times to me now, and you know, each time there's almost like a disconnect, because I don't fully know what I'm saying, and or my mind can't keep up with what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, I can understand that, yeah.
But and so like after I might say something, I might not even fully know what I just said.
Yeah.
And
I used to call it the bozo effect. I felt like a bozo because I couldn't, it wasn't like I was drunk in that way, but it was like I didn't really know what I was doing.
Right.
And still that happens, but it's more integrated now. But it was, at first, it was more shocking and more striking. Like, I was like, I don't know if this makes sense. but it's happening because it is. It's like the mind, has lost its magnitude. It's not like got its the power that it had, and it begins to break down. Because I do think that suffering and separation comes from our conceptualization and our use of words. So when we began to get into complex thinking and complicated words and naming things and putting meanings on things, that this is when separation happened. Prior to that, there was a sense of wholeness, but there just wasn't the ability to know it. So now what we can have happen is that we can be lost in words, have these awakenings, go back to oneness, and then because we can place meanings on things, we can kind of know it in time, which is really special.
Yeah, and I apologize for my dog barking.
Oh, no worries. I have the same issue if you didn't just hear them.
Yeah. What's an interesting effect also is that if I'm talking to somebody, well, there's also this, like, when that happens, there's this knowing that even if I'm not fully aware of, or even though my mind doesn't fully conceptualize of what's being said, there's this surrender that I know that what is being said is what's coming from the heart. And so I'm okay with whatever comes out and not keeping up with it, because I know that it's driving, it's in the driver's seat, and it's saying what needs to be said in that moment. And I've also, when speaking to people, like, and through that, I don't know what to call it, but the bozo, right?
The bozo energy.
People have said that my eyes change color when I'm doing that, which I find fascinating. I obviously cannot see that, but
there does seem to be, I mean, that is my experience as well. There does seem to be something that changes in the eyes. Mine didn't change color. I have deeply dark eyes, if you can't see, so they're deep brown. But there is like a lightness or a openness, I think, that happens in the eyes.
Yeah, so that needs to be explored more. But so that was it. I just was really taken back by that.
Yeah, beautiful.
You know, you were brought to my world in that way. And the very first video I watched had that huge impact, and so I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh yeah, with pleasure. I'm so blessed that life gives me this opportunity for this subject to be expressed through this body. Like, I'm also grateful that this ended up being the function here. So it's so beautiful, non-duality. I don't see it as mine. Like, I'm not saying Lisa speaks beautifully. Like, I just think that, I mean, it's an absolute love story. I'm so in love with non-duality. It's freedom. It's the most beautiful subject I've ever come across.
Yeah, it definitely is. And so the awakening, the shift that I had was almost 8 months ago. So for me now, I'm really starting to explore the who am I aspect of it, and trying to pull further back from that so that I can enjoy it even more.
Yeah, totally. Beautiful. Yeah, nice.
All right. Thanks again, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. Lovely to speak with you.
Take care.
No more calls me. Call me, call me. No more call me's. Okay, so we'll take a question. Lucas, hi Lisa. I have 2 questions for you. First question In your present experience, my present experience, are there other people living separate lives from you? Second one, I hear teachers talk about awakening only in terms of how great it is and how much bliss and happiness there is. So on a personal level, what challenges have you encountered during your awakening process? Hey Lucas, so there are other people and there aren't. So in the thinking mind, when I think about people, there are other people. So in time, there is seemingly other people, you could say. But from the absolute perspective, which is my heart and my sense of being, there are no other people. I know that's confusing. So if I speak from the absolute, there are no other people. If I speak from the character, there are other characters. And they're not really living separate from me, but there's the ability to conceptualize the idea of other people. I hear teachers talk about awakening. That makes total sense, thank you. Oh, good, Lucas. I hear teachers talking about awakening only in terms of how great it is and how much. Oh my God, if I talked about all the challenges, so I had this awakening, I started awakening in my early 20s, most probably early teens actually, but like I officially got into spirituality in my 20s and then had many awakening experiences. But I had this big shift, nearly 11 years ago now. Wow. And so, life throws up all types of challenges. All types. None of us are free of that. It's the nature of being alive. The nature of being alive is that these objects evolve and get consumed by other objects to evolve. So there's going to be problems, or roadblocks for everybody, enlightened or not enlightened. The difference that I would say over the last 11 years is there is this connection to this freedom. So this deep connection to this expansiveness. But on the human level, there's been many things that have come up. And I also think that every problem that comes up or difficulty comes up allows the character to evolve beyond itself. If it's taken in the right way, it allows you to expand. For me, predominantly what has come up over the last 10 years is relationship issues. I don't just mean romantic relationship issues, but relational issues. Because of, I have to move my camera down a little, sinking down my chair. Because of becoming a teacher and having so few people that know who I am, but just having a little bit of being known in the internet and people, dealing with people that come into relationship to you from that, having all these ideas about you being an enlightened master and all these different types of things, and then also the general struggles that a young woman has on the internet nowadays. It's got better, I feel, but there's that issue. And also, it was my weakness, I think, is relational issues, erecting appropriate boundaries and not focusing enough on my needs but the others. And then also non-duality made me even weaker with that, because you get so blissed out and you feel so free from a non-dual perspective, it's easy to let other people get what they want rather than yourself. So I feel like the last 10 years, it's most of my issues that I've dealt with are relational stuff. In terms of everything else, I feel like my life has been really blessed and easy. Yes. Thank you for your question, Lucas. I hope that helps. Good afternoon. Hey, Thomas. Totally agree with you about the level of caregiving today. Increased neoliberalism has played a huge part in this, with less time, fracture of larger families, community, individualism, and consumerism. Yeah. Love you, Julia. Love you. Yeah. And love you, Julie. Oh, beautiful. Malise. Melise. I hope I'm saying your name like Melise. Hello, Melise. What is friendship? How can I say who is a friend when I have awkward friends from the past and I've changed as a person? So who are they even to me? I've changed, but they seem confusing, awkward judges. They don't feel natural to my heart or my mind as friends. Should I distance from these people or try to forcibly rebuild these relationships? Hey, Melise. Yeah, thanks for your question. This is way too complicated for me to answer online. I would go and speak with somebody who's an expert in this area and really explore it for yourself. So rather than looking to somebody to answer these questions for you, like really explore what it is you want from friendships, what your needs are and what your wants are. And you can do this with all types of different therapists or different non-duality teachers, different spiritual teachers, and you can find this online. And there is no shame in me suggesting that. Like when I suggest working one-to-one with people, I'm not saying there is something wrong with you and that you need to change. I'm suggesting a beautiful thing, and that is to evolve and to understand yourself on a deeper level. And these people are trained in that. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It's just that you can explore these questions with them just for you, you know. And sometimes when we're left to our own devices on this, you know, we miss things about ourselves. And maybe that person is like really wrong and doesn't know what they're talking about, but at least give it a go to kind of like evoke what's happening in you. Like, yeah, that would be my advice. I think that, you know, if I tried to answer any of that, you know, it'd be very superficial because I don't know what your tendencies are, what your dynamics are. You know, if there's like social anxiety, like all different types of things. Like, yeah. Thank you for your question. Hey, Mark. Yes. Oh, you would like to speak? Okay, oh, cool. Mark. Hello? Hey, Mark. I can't hear you. I think if you can turn your video off. That's better for me, but I can't hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, you're very quiet. Maybe you can just practice this by yourself on your phone, and then I'll take another question, and then I'll come back to you. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Bye.
No problem.
Oops. Yeah, we can just take a moment. Sometimes I get into speaking so fast, like I want to convey as much information as I can sometimes. But the real freedom is beyond information. Like there's something beyond this. It's so free and expansive and alive. Yeah. Hey, Isabel. Whoa, truly appreciate today's topic. Very kind, insightful reflection. The love. Ah, sweet Izzy. Oh, I love the colours of that. I'm not a red person, but I like the colours altogether. A red person. Often my cheeks are red. Lloyd. Hi, Lisa. I hope you're well today. Thank you, Lloyd. I often hear you say that we are not sitting in a chair watching you speak, that it's an illusion. Could you speak a little about that, about how we are not individuals moving through time? I can look back at the past and see that it is dreamlike, but when there is presence, I feel very real or very here and not dreamlike at all. So it's hard to understand the idea there is being no individual present. Hope my question isn't too convoluted. Happy Sunday, Luke. Oh, not Lloyd, Luke. Hey, Luke, Lloyd. Lloyd, Luke. Yeah, I did find it convoluted. So, right here, right now, if you go into the directness of the timeless, where is the body? Where is the person? Where is the room? All of that is meaning that you've attached to objects. What is the direct experience? It's so wonderful. Gives me chills. The direct experience is there's nothing looking and there is no things. But yet there's this. So what's happening is your mind, you're in the presence experience that you're happening, the mind is still attaching to meaning and words. So go deeper, go beyond that. And it's not even something you do going beyond that or going deeper. It's something that happens. Yeah, thanks, Lloyd, for your question. Hey, Jackie. Hi, Lisa. Do you think that you can see somebody's soul or character through the eyes? And can you talk more about the difference in eyes after awakening? Thanks. I don't know about the soul or the character through the eyes. I know that some people talk about that. I don't know about that. Well, I think like the difference that happens is that energetically, when you feel separated and there's not that energetic shift, there is a lot of contracted energy behind the eyes, and there's a lot of focus there. And I feel like when there's an expansion, it kind of spans forward and comes forward. That sounds really nonsensical, but it's like an energetic movement, and we can perceive and sense energetic movements. So there's that, and there's also like, if you've ever been into a mental institute to visit people or seen people on high medication or with high anxiety, you'll notice that they look really absent from their eyes, so their eyes kind of look dead. And so when you have this shift, it's like you become really awake, like really here, really present, and so the eyes become really awake. I don't know what it is, but I suspect it's related to this contraction and this like focus on this thinking and this individual. Yeah. Thanks, Jackie, for the question. Hi, Vincencio. Hi Lisa, just wanted to say you're a great teacher. Thank you for these live streams. Oh, thanks Vincio. It's lovely to say. And it's a pleasure. What a gift it is to speak about non-duality, eh? Thank you for your response, Poiting. Amazing. Oh, nice, Lloyd. Yeah, so I got to end of the questions, so I'll begin this live stream to an end. Oh, Mark's just said he fixes it. Oh, I think it's too late now, Mark. Yeah, I think it's a bit late now. I normally finish at 6 o'clock French time now. Yeah, sorry. Said fix it, you pour in all that energy, and I'm like, yeah. You know, if I take another question, it could go on for quite a while. Yes, that was beautiful to share with you today. I just want to say I wish you everything. I really wish you everything. And yeah, nothing more. This is it. Non-duality is the freedom. Yeah. Okay, I wish you a beautiful week, and I will see you next Sunday at 6 p.m. French time. Yeah, lots of love.